Hey guys, today I have a freebie for you, which is this kick sampler rack that I made. Go ahead and grab it from the description, and I'm gonna explain to you what it does. So this kick sampler rack allows you to sample any kick from any track you want, even if there's some elements playing at the same time. For example, I have this track over here. I can't play it to you because of copyright problems, but the first thing you want to do is just find a kick in the track where there's as little elements playing at the same time as possible. So I found this part. There's some percussion elements at the top, but there's not a whole lot of elements going on at the same time. So when you find the part that you want to sample, just select that part. You can zoom in and just make sure you get the transient, the beginning of the kick. Hold Shift and go to the end of the sample. Then just press Command and E, and that's gonna split the track. Actually, you can press Command or Control and J, and that's gonna consolidate the clip. All right, back to the video. Now, just put the kick sampler rack onto a new MIDI track. For example, I have it over here. And you just want to drop the sample onto all the layers. So this is our bass layer, mid layer, and high layer. And you want to simply click on all of these and drop your sample onto the display. Let's drop it in here as well. I had it already loaded up. And then let's solo this track. And I'm playing a C3 note because it's the default pitch always. And all right, so first of all, let's start with the dry signal. We have the same sample. And then let's go all the way up with the dry wet. As you can hear, we pretty much removed all of the high end and the mid range, but we still have a really nice snap for the kick. That's what these decay knobs do. So let me explain how that works. This rack splits the signal of your kick into 3 channels: the bass channel, mid channel, and high channel. And all of them have different lengths. Here's why. Most harmonic and melodic material in a kick drum is contained in the mid and high frequency bands. So if we want to remove most of that material, but retain the snap of the kick, we want to just make these layers very short. So we're using the mid and high frequencies mostly for the snap of the kick and the bass for the long tail. So you can see here that we have the mids and highs around 100 milliseconds, but the bass is pretty long. It's actually 700 milliseconds over here. You could try to make the bass even shorter to remove that long bass tail. Now the kick doesn't have the tone in the bass, but we also can go higher. And now we have the sub bass, a little bit of that in the kick. So in essence, try having your high layer very short, the mid layer just a tad longer, and the bass layer the longest. Alright, so you know what all these knobs do. Let's now go through the other ones. We have this frequency low and frequency high knob. And what these knobs do, they just decide where your layers end and start. So this is the border between the bass and mid layers, and this is the border between the mid and high layers. If you start with something around 250 Hz and 2 kHz, it should be fine. But you can always tweak these bands to adjust to your own taste, and it can give slightly different results when you're sampling a kick. Now there's also this low pass knob in here, which you can use to just reduce the high end of the kick a tiny bit. It works only on the high layer. I'm just gonna show to you what it sounds like. You can see that it adjusts the filter, the low pass filter frequency on the high layer. And sometimes when you're sampling a kick, there's a lot of high frequency material. So sometimes you want to reduce that a little bit. That's what the low pass could be useful for. And at the end, we have a mono check knob. With the mono check knob, you can simply check what your kick is going to sound like in mono, just to make sure it's not going to disappear when you play the track in mono. So this is what the kick sounds like in mono. It's not a huge difference, but if you're on headphones, you're gonna notice that. So once you're done with your kick, you can save it to your library. There's a couple of ways of doing it. You can freeze and flatten the track and save it as an audio sample, or you can save this whole rack with a new name, and you'll get even more flexibility when you're using the kick in a track. All right, let me go through what I did on the other kicks, because there's a few techniques that help with sampling kicks with this device. So here I have a techno style kick drum. All right, and the interesting thing I did here was I right-clicked on the simplers on all these layers, and I selected Convert Simpler to Sampler. Now it's the other way around because I already converted it. But I did that to make sure I have no clicking at the beginning of the sample. Sometimes if you have an annoying click sound at the beginning of your sample, it's good to convert it into a sampler and then just adjust the beginning like this, and make sure to have the exact same starting point for all your layers, because otherwise it could introduce some problems. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did for this kick. Let's see what we have here. This is an acoustic style kick, and I didn't do a lot of processing on here, but the only thing I changed was I monoed the bass here. So this is what it sounded like before. Sometimes you can try to mono some parts of your kick to make it feel stronger. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the acoustic kick. Now let's try this one. So for this kick, I chose to adjust the length of the low layer manually. I didn't get good results with the low decay knob, so I chose to go to one-shot mode in here and made a fade out, and then dragged the end like this, and now it has a bit stronger bass end. I used the low pass knob on the fifth kick. Let me play what it sounds like. So this high layer had a lot of high frequency content. So I chose to just reduce it a bit with the low pass knob. This rack also works nicely for clipped kick drums, just like this one. And I didn't really change anything in here. Now let's play this kick. Here I chose to reduce the length of the highs manually, and I also messed around with the volumes of the layers quite a bit. Actually, I also messed around with the length of the low layer and with the fade out in one-shot mode. And what I did as well was I monoed the high layer. And this way I reduced the stereo image of the kick, and it's gonna feel a bit stronger in a mix. Now here's what I did with the last kick. You can see that I have a sample from a track on low and mid layers, but I chose to have a different attack for the sound, and I imported a scissor sample for the high layer. Believe it or not, but this is a scissors snapping sound, and I used the low pass knob to reduce the high end, and then I also pitched it down with the transposition in here. So the sample together sounds like this. I just had to freeze the track to avoid some noises, but you can see that I also put a haze effect onto this layer to enhance the stereo image of it, because What you can do with this rack is you can put different effects on different layers to process them differently. You can treat them differently to get a more interesting kick sound. For example, you can enhance the stereo image of some layers, or you can distort them differently, saturate them, process them in all kinds of ways. And you see that I have a limiter at the end just to reduce the dynamics of the high layer just slightly. But yeah, that's pretty much what I did for all the kicks. I really like the results that I get with this kick sampler. It's not always perfect. Obviously, there's no way to get the perfect kick sample from every track, but you still get pretty decent results, and I think I would experiment with adding these layers or these kick drums into my own tracks, especially if I'm trying to achieve a kick drum that sounds like some other producer. Okay, that would be it for the video. Before you go, make sure to check out my Skype lessons. I do one-on-one sessions through Skype, so if you're interested, go into the description to find out more. And we also have a lot of music production courses, and all links are in the description where you can find all kinds of stuff. You can also find more racks like this if you're interested on our website. Alright, have fun with the rack, guys, and I hope to see you in the next videos.